What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Janoah Van Kekem. You guys have probably heard me talk about the Momentum Lifestyle group that I've been a part of over the past 12 months or so. The boys, the three main coaches there, Janoah, Blake, and Dylan. We've had Dylan on the show before. Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by Janoah to talk us through the world of meditation, which is a super popular topic at the moment, and a very useful tool, particularly at this day and age with COVID and the rest of it. So I'm really excited about today's chat. So Janoah, welcome to the podcast, man. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Mate, I'm glad we got a session in.
So am I, man. I think today's episode will be super valuable. Obviously, I've taken a shitload of value from working with you boys, as I said, over the past kind of 12 months, I think it's roughly been on and off, which has been fantastic. And I just think there's so many little gems that we can touch on today that'll help a lot of people out. So, mate, before we get stuck into the meat of it with the meditation side of things, do you want to give the listeners a bit of an idea of, I guess, your background and how you eventually kind of stepped into this world of, personal development and even meditation in the first place? Because I know it wasn't always part of your daily routine.
Yeah, man, it's funny when I think back to how I used to operate and just my view on the whole world of meditation and personal development. So it wasn't until like late 20s that I kind of opened my mind up to doing any kind of work on myself. So pre-becoming sort of meditation teacher and mindset coach, I spent a lot of time working in the alcohol industry. And my lifestyle was pretty intense. You can imagine I worked hard, but also played hard.
Yep.
And
kind of tied in perfectly.
Yeah, like
just doing some extra research over the weekend.
That's what it's all about, And but also I was so very unaware and ego driven. So I was like, nah, I knew everything was my way. If someone came in and said, personal development or meditation, like fuck off, that's weird woo shit. That was just my opinion on it. But at the same time, I experienced pretty bad anxiety. I didn't actually realize I had anxiety. I didn't click onto the fact that feeling like I wanted to vomit, before going on a date or big game. I remember when I was in high school and in my early 20s, I'd played, I was a good runner and I played footy, and so before big games or before a sprint, I would feel like I wanted to vomit sometimes, and really impacted my performance. But that was just, in my mind, that was normal, and no one knew about it. I found a way to half vomit in my mouth, and I was putting my mouth guard in or whatever, whatever it was, and just pushed through. And then when I moved into the corporate sort of world, I was, as I mentioned, pretty full on in terms of the work hard, play hard, but also I couldn't go to sleep without having TV on in the background. And I was very high energy and aggressive and reactive. And that's kind of how I operated. And that was just what I thought life was, right? And you just push through. And anything outside of the realm of what I understood and knew, I wasn't open to it.
Yeah.
And that was how I began. And it took me a while to finally be open to doing the work on myself. Because part of that meant that maybe I didn't have my shit sorted. Maybe I didn't have all the answers. Because, when you're in that stage.
Accepting the fact that things aren't probably quite as they seem.
Yeah. And, I mean, if anyone honestly thinks they've got all their shit sorted, their head's up their ass. It's not true. And it doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means you're a human being. And so that's when I finally started to land. I was like, it's okay to be I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not performing my best. And so it was what sort of got me across the line, and that transition to being this non-believer, skeptical, anti-doing the work, to now being open to it, was I met some people actually, funny enough, some clients of mine who I deemed as normal. So my idea of normal was they still ate meat and they drank alcohol and they were creative and cool. And the guy was a surfer, and Jackie ended up becoming a teacher and a good friend of mine. She had a PR company and all this stuff. And I was like, they're in fashion. And I was like, oh, they're cool, normal people. And they were quite open about the fact that they meditated. And it wasn't like this weird thing they kept quiet in a dark corner. This is what we do. And it helps me perform. And I remember the guy, he said to me, he was in his 60s at that point, Greg, and he'd been at one point, he was in the top group of Australian chefs, and he was a bit of a hard ass and all the rest. And he goes, mate, I just wish I'd learnt this when I was younger. And that kind of just landed with me. I was like, because I really respected him, because he has a bit of a hard ass, but also just a good bloke. And I was like, this guy's talking about meditation in this way.
Yep.
And then I started looking into performance, and I was going through a Tim Ferriss phase, right?
Okay, yeah.
Tim Ferriss podcast.
Yep.
And there was just a theme was there.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who was involved in, whether it's like big wave surfers or, hedge fund managers or cryptocurrency or, weightlifter fucking Schwarzenegger, all these people that he interviewed, they all used meditation and mindfulness in their routine to help them perform. And I was like, there's a common thread here. And that was what kind of the kicker for me to finally open my mind and then actually learn. And that's sort of what the transition was.
Yeah, success leaves clues, right? There's a bunch of things to unpack out of that. I think the first one you mentioned, which is super important, is I think who did I hear say it? Might have been Jay Shetty once said something like, those that don't have the time or don't believe in the meditation are the ones that need it the most. It's typical where like those that can't see it are often the ones that really do. That will benefit from it the most if they give it a chance. But on the other hand, something that I've found, particularly once I started to meditate and got really stuck into personal development and self-improvement, is you can't push it on other people. It's got to be their decision, regardless of how close they are or regardless of how much they need it or how obvious it is to you that they need it. If you push it on them and they're not open or ready for it, it's not going to be effective and they're just not going to want to do it, which I think is, the benefit of things like this, like the podcasting, the social media content, and even, I'm sure when you started to dive into meditation and personal development, everyone around you would have noticed a big difference in lifestyle change and, even personality or the way you respond to certain things, which is often the best way, just leading by example, to get others to give it a bit of a try. So, I've been fortunate to have a few people on the podcast where we've touched on meditation, and something I always ask is, what was your first experience with meditation? And, second to that, what would you recommend for someone who's tuned in at the moment, who is in that kind of mindset of maybe wanting to try it, but not knowing where to first start?
Yeah. So my first experience of meditation was I learnt a technique called Vedic meditation, which is working with a mantra.
Okay.
And I still remember like waiting to go learn, and I had to bring these like flowers and fruits part of the ceremony. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like if a mate sees me here, like this is so random, but I did it and I sat through it and I learned, and it was the best thing I ever did. I was like, I was just sitting there and I was closing my eyes and I was like, I can't control my mind and I can't clear my thoughts. And she's like, that's not what it's about. And I was like, huh? Like, isn't meditation meant to be controlling and clearing your mind? And she's like, no, this technique is more around helping the body to relax and de-excite so it can remove the buildup of stress and tension fatigue out of the system. And I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was.
Yep.
And so for me, it was a little bit of confusion in getting my head around what meditation actually meant, because there are lots of different types that are out there, which is, I think, a lot of people struggle with. That
seems to be a pretty common misconception. And that was something that I struggle with, is almost thinking that there was a right or wrong way to meditate, or like you almost either succeeded or you didn't succeed in the podcast, in the meditation, similar to like what my mindset would have been with almost everything else. But it is almost the opposite of that. It was like, I would finish a meditation and go, oh, well, fuck, that was a waste of time because I didn't switch off, or I spent majority of the time thinking about this, or so it didn't work. But it wasn't until later on that I kind of figured out that's not the case. And it's okay to have these, thoughts come up. It's more so about just recognizing them and then letting them go.
That's one of the biggest things I think people struggle with. And I also did with that in that first little bit. I was like, because a lot of people will regurgitate what monks and old yogis have said. And monks and yogis, who are the fundamental teachers of meditation, they don't live like us. They probably can clear their thoughts of the day and they can contemplate for hours on end. And so a lot of people are going around and just, they listen to a teacher, they say the same thing, but it's not relevant to how we operate now. And part of the process in the styles that I work with are actually, they use thoughts as part of the process, because trying to get your your mind to stop thinking is like trying to get your heart to stop beating. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's actually a valuable part of the process. And a meditation where you sit there and you feel uncomfortable and you want to get out of it and you keep thinking and you get frustrated, that is actually doing some good work and processing for you. If you're sitting there with your eyes closed and you feel uncomfortable and like you want to get out and all the rest, that's within you.
Because usually, like the most common thing is or the most natural thing is, as soon as you feel uncomfortable, as soon as you have these thoughts that you aren't happy with or they don't sit right, you do whatever you can to avoid it. Whether it is
correct,
like you said, maybe sleeping with the TV on, going out drinking, drugs, whatever it may be. We often don't sit with the negativity because we don't want to face it. But that's the beauty of, or the hard part, I guess, of the meditation, which once you can get past that hump, that's when all the good shit seems to happen.
Yeah, we love that numbing and escapism. That's how we deal with feeling and discomfort. And unfortunately, that doesn't allow our bodies to process it. So for our bodies to process feeling, emotions, even some trauma, we actually have to feel it. And this is where a lot of us go, we try to think our way through everything, which causes most of our mental anguish, trying to solve. We can't solve everything in our minds, as I'm sure you know. And part of the process is actually to sit there and allow yourself to feel it and not let the mind go off and run on its negative tangents and create more stories and bullshit around it. And so for the first, moving back to the start of the question, was around what was my first experience with it. The first few weeks for me, I was really tired. I was exhausted and I was like, what the hell's going on? I remember talking to my teacher and I was like, so this meditation is meant to make me energized and clear and focused and all the rest. She goes, I'm like, I'm wrecked. And she's like, okay, tell me about the last 10 years of your life. And I was like, party hard, worked hard, missing sleep, would still train hard. My body was under it. I would push through. And she goes, so your body's fatigued. You don't make that back up by one night of, you have a few big blowouts and then you get up in the morning and train after a big blowout and all the rest. That's what I did. And she goes, your body doesn't recover from one night of, 10 hours sleep because you're wrecked. You're not back to normal then. Your body's carried that debt and you hold on to that and you just push through until a point where you break or it manifests into a disease, a sickness, anxiety, whatever it is, a panic attack. She goes, so what your body's doing now is it's actually now getting the time to start working through that accumulation of fatigue in your system. And so my body was working through the fatigue. So the first part of that was me feeling the fatigue that I'd pushed through for so long. And I was like, and then once I moved through it, then I up-leveled. Then my energy level shift. Then I was able to focus better. I was a lot more creative in my awareness around how I operated and how I responded to things that triggered me, how much of an arsehole I actually could be to people. All that stuff started to really shift. Yeah. And that was that interesting phase for me of understanding what the process of meditation can look like, i.e. it's not this beautiful, blissful state all the time. You sit there with no thoughts. And then the interesting, process after that was, it was other people that then started to notice the shifts in me. Yep. Right. So after a while, you normalize, right? So say even in you, right? Say you sit at 80 kgs and then you bulk up and you pump on 85 to 90. You're like, wow, I'm looking good. Rah, rah. After a while that normalizes. And that's just now how you don't notice the difference anymore. That's just
we
standard,
adapt.
right? And similar to how your mind and body work. So after a while I was like, I think it stopped working. And then I remember asking like my parents and friends, I was like, do you think there's a difference in me? And they're oh yeah, there is. I'm like, okay, got it. No more need to be said. And my whole experience of life changed. My decision making, the internal dialogue with myself, anxiety is non-existent for me anymore. Pretty much, I sleep like a baby. I recover. I'm the best. I did a funny post yesterday because I just turned 36 yesterday, and I found a photo of me on my 30th. And I remember someone said to me when I first started to delve into the work and particularly heavily into meditation, they're like, take a photo of yourself now and then take a photo of yourself in 5 or 10 years time. And I did it and I was like, wow, I actually look better, fresher, younger. I was like, whoa. Yeah. So the changes really start adding up when you stay consistent with it. And so not only personally, but for how I interact with others as well.
You said your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday for yesterday. I feel like an asshole now.
Oh, mate.
Hope it was a good day, mate.
I was waiting for your message. I was like, where is it? Where's
I think the phone lines are down here, actually. I did send one, but it didn't come through. A word you use there, awareness. That's something that I want to touch on in a second, like the other kind of variants of the meditation that you can dive down as well. But awareness for me lately has been something that's coming up a lot in the meditations I'm doing. I tend to do kind of like guided meditations or, transcendental meditations, and the word and the focus on awareness seems to be quite big, which is something super interesting and something that probably a lot of people never really put any attention towards, because I find we're just on autopilot. Even now, like when I'm doing this work, I am trying to meditate and journal and stuff every day. It's hard not to find yourself on autopilot mentally and physically. It's doing the same things day in, day out, having the same thoughts. And I think it's might have been Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks a lot about how, when we do have the same thoughts and the same movements every day, you can see how we create those thoughts create our reality. So aside from like the mantra meditation, is there any other kinds that you've tried or that you would recommend? Is the mantra the one that you found the most benefit from?
So I tend to break meditation into two sort of categories. And so there's one category which I explain as directive styles of meditation, where there's a level of effort. Mm-hmm. So anything where you're like concentrating hard on something, we're trying to focus on a flame or a part of the body. Maybe you're visualizing something where you're trying to create a mental picture.
Like a manifestation type thing.
Yeah. Or even just like you're out in the jungle and there's a beautiful stream, and those kind of visualizations to create a mental construct to have a physical experience from that, which is often relaxation. Things like contemplation, where you might contemplate or place some awareness on the thoughts or parts of the body. So, are these thoughts serving me? What are they doing? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Even things like body scans.
Yep.
And which obviously you would, that's what we did every session before our momentum workshops. And these types of techniques, most of them tend to stem from the Buddhist philosophy and tie into the mindfulness styles of meditation. And they're great for shifting like a state in the now. So if you're feeling frenetic, anxious, overwhelmed, whatever it is, they're great little techniques that you can drop into for a few minutes.
Yep.
All the apps use a shade or combination of these styles, right? If you've used the apps, they'll sort of guide you through a mixture of some of those processes. And they're really good for what I say is like calming you in the now.
Yep.
Now to really see, an altered state, right? Now to really see an altered trait as a byproduct of these styles of meditation, you need to do a lot of it, and if you've heard of a technique called Vipassana, where you go away for 10 days and it's silent, you meditate for hours a day. You can have profound experiences, but you need to do a lot of it, because they were techniques that monks used. They've pretty much taken techniques used for thousands of years by monks and taken them to like 5-minute, 2-minute, 10-minute little snippets, so we can try to integrate it into our worlds. And they can be great, but what I experience personally and what I find a lot of my students experience, they try the apps and these styles, like, they were okay, but now I feel like I'm just I'd fall off the wagon. I don't really feel like they're doing much anymore, or whatever it is. And so they're almost like the gateway drug to meditation. Like, they're easy, they're cheap, they're the ones you can dabble into, they're quick to do, and they're great tools to have. So I use them as like the toolkit. So
almost like an introduction.
And right. And they're great tools to have when you're feeling at a point in time. Now, what I specialize in falls under the non-directive bracket. And this is things like TM, so transcendental and Vedic. Now, these are often described as concentration styles of meditation, which is confusing, because while you are working with a mantra, and a mantra in this case it's not an affirmation, there's no meaning behind it. It's just a sound vibration. And the idea is that you just you say this word in your mind, but you're not concentrating or chanting or saying a certain way. It's kind of this light awareness that you place on the mantra as almost like a little soft anchor that whenever you disappear into thought, you come back to. But you also, part of the process is to, sometimes you forget the mantra, you're just in that state of relaxation and flow. And the whole idea of these styles of technique are that you, by de-exciting the mind in terms of when the mantra is just being whispered in your mind, because there's no meaning, you're not trying to visualize something, you're not trying to contemplate something, you're not trying to concentrate and focus on one single thing. When your mind is able to engage in this sound with no meaning, no logical explanation, it actually just for a moment in time, it's able to go past the relative thinking, which is the doing. solving problems, the worry, all the rest. And when it does that, the mind actually can de-excite because it stopped doing. It's like
subconscious type mind.
Yeah, you go beyond the relative blah, 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 blah. And when that happens, because the mind and body are connected, they're more than connected, they're one.
Yeah.
And so when the mind de-excites, the body does too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's deep, deep rest for the body. Now, the most efficient way for the body to replenish fatigue, process stress and tension is deep rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's happening in this style of technique. And so this technique, I would argue, is better for helping the body to release the old buildup of stress and fatigue from the past.
Okay.
That makes sense. So if you look at any of Joe Dispenza's stuff, right, it's all past stuff that we carry, which manifests into our current issues.
Reality.
Reality. And so by consistently doing a practice like that every day, your body's just relieving stress, tension, fatigue every day as you go. And the byproduct of that is things like increased mindfulness, increased awareness, better focus, more clarity, more creativity. And by doing it regularly, it creates an altered trait. Now, these techniques were designed in the 50s by an Indian physicist, and they're designed for the house. They're designed for us. They're not the exact techniques that monks and yogis use for the last 5,000 years. They've tried to weave into our way of living. It was actually created by a yogi who understood physics and had a better grasp on modern day living. And he came to California in the 60s and rolled it out. And so there's quite a difference actually in the two styles. So what I work with using that sort of the mantra is that a daily practice you just do regardless, that is helping to just help that body do the extra heavy lifting, dealing with day-to-day stress that we all experience. So that was kind of as quick as I could explanation of how I try to separate the styles.
Yeah, and because the next thing I wanted to touch on was the length of a meditation. Something that comes up quite often is a 5-minute meditation on an app like Headspace enough to really see any benefit? I was listening to a podcast the other day where the host was talking about, it's like when you meet someone new that you fall in love with or whatever, and imagine you got to spend 5 minutes a day with them for a month. You still at the end of the month would be very unsure or very, you'd want to know a lot more about them, and you wouldn't have actually got to know them that well. Whereas if you spent a full week together or a full day together, it's going to be a different story. So he touched on things like going and doing like a meditation retreat, or going and doing a full day course or whatever on meditation, and then maybe going back to like a 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. And then the benefit that you can have from that big, like immersing yourself in meditation at the beginning can be profound. Have you found, in terms of people that are just starting out, whether there is enough benefit from doing it for 5 to 10 minutes a day?
Look, there is, but it's real marginal. So I rate meditation, I really compare it to exercise. Mm-hmm. Do you think doing 5 or 10 minutes of exercise a day is going to be a real impact? It's better than none.
Better than none, yeah. But you're not going to see the results you potentially could if you were doing it properly, right? Yeah.
It's a priority thing.
Mm-hmm.
People often like, I'm too busy. Like, no, you're not. It's a priority. Yeah. I teach single mums who have own businesses. You can create time priority for what you deem as valuable to you. And so I would argue that to really start seeing some shifts, you'd want to be doing in total 20 to 40 minutes a day. That could be split. So it could be like 2 10-minute sessions, 2 15-minute sessions, 2 20-minute sessions. Maybe 1 20-minute session, if that's all you've got. That'd probably be the minimal I'd want to be doing if you want to really start seeing some shifts. Now, 20 minutes is like, what, % of your day? It's not much. But the byproduct of there outweighs the investment. There's ROI in there. So in that way, dip your toe in the water. Like 5 minutes is better than none. 10 minutes is better than none.
Yeah.
But it depends. Don't do 5 minutes
outcome that you're after
every now and then complain because it's not working. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer to that one.
With the clients that you've worked with, what have been some of the major areas of benefit that you've seen in their day-to-day life, aside from, I guess, decluttering the mind and relaxing, but in terms of actual measurable progress, or whether it is performance at work, whether it is, energy levels, whatever it may be, what are the main things that you've kind of picked up on?
the biggest one by far is that a lot of people come initially and there's big issues with things like anxiety and direction and confidence and a lot of the negative thinking, which they'll hold you back. Right. And so one of the probably the biggest byproducts is that people find that anxiety just falls away. And that as a byproduct also is going to help your focus, your confidence. For a lot of people,
productivity and things like that as well,
right? When you're not indecisive and all around, you get stuff done. Another big one is energy levels. So people find they've got more energy, better sleep. Another one is creativity, which is also one that I find when you're in survival mode, which is stress, response, you're not creative, you're not expansive, you're not happy, you're looking for negatives, you're looking for threats. And so they're probably the main ones. Often people as well find that their decision-making shifts, they become sharper, but they also start making decisions that are more in line with where they want to go. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
aligned with their purpose type of thing.
Yeah. Because a lot more clarity on where they actually want to go. And if you're tired and you're fatigued and you're anxious and you're not very confident, you will make decisions that are just based on old behavior. You're an autopilot. You're going to go back to the old. Now, if you are not running fatigued, stressed, anxious, negative, you're able to see a lot more expansively and you're able to challenge old ways of being and old ways of thinking. And so for a lot of people as well, it's that the big one I've noticed also is around finding a level of confidence in their future and be like, now I've got a bit more drive in where I'm going.
Real clarity, and
less reactivity as well. Like they're like, things just don't bother me as much as they used to. Like I used to really get fucked off when this used to happen. Now I'm like, it doesn't charge me as much. So a lot less energy is wasted on, just ridiculous things each day.
Aside from the, potentially the not meditating long enough to see the full benefit, is there any other common mistakes that you see people make? Whether it's something that I've been trying to get figure out lately is whether or not there's a certain place in the apartment where I should sit and meditate every single day, or whether it can be done anywhere. Is there certain things general rules that you try and get your clients or those that you like to teach to follow to get the most out of it?
One of the biggest things actually is getting rid of the idea that you need to have a calm, quiet, beautiful space to meditate, because that just creates barriers. Because if you forget your meditation cushion, or you forget, your incense, or you're like, this is too loud, there's always going to be excuses anyway. We're going to resist this kind of stuff. So one of the biggest things is not to get too caught up in having this perfect, serene environment, because that's not life.
Yep.
And the way that I teach is designed, and the meditation style that I work with in particular is designed to work no matter if there's someone next door playing loud music, or whether you're in an office or on a park bench or parked in a car park in your car. I used to meditate in the bus all the time. So one of the biggest things actually is to get rid of the idea of the perfect way to meditate, and that it's meant to be beautiful and blissful, and be okay with the discomfort and the resistance and the grindy process of it, and to lean into that more, because that is literally what a lot of meditation will bring up for you.
I guess
that's probably one of the biggest ones.
In the end of the day, it's very rarely going to be the case in real life as well. If you're trying to lean on that ability to be able to become present and switch off, if you're in your day-to-day job and things are chaotic, you can't exactly just tell everyone to shut the fuck up and turn all the lights off and burn some incense so you can meditate. It's not going to happen that way, is it?
Yeah, it's not. And I also try to encourage people when they start to meditate to reframe what meditation is, as in it's not this weird woo-woo thing that means you've kind of lost your edge.
Yep.
You're meditating because you're in the small percentile of people that are here to perform at their best, and they don't give a fuck what other people think.
Yeah.
Look at scientific research. Most forward thinkers and open-minded people and high performers, they meditate. They don't give a shit what their colleagues thinking, or their friends giving them, shit for closing their eyes in a corner. And really shift that. What are you here to care about? What are you here to do in the world? To worry about someone who doesn't understand what you're doing and maybe passes judgment that way? Or are you here to be the best that you can be by investing time in things that we know work? That's another thing, just around shifting your mindset around what meditation actually is.
Yeah.
For you.
Is there anything that you pair with the meditation? Obviously common things would be things like journaling or daily goal setting, gratitude lists and things like that. Do you think it's essential to have something else that pairs on with that to give yourself almost some form of intention to be focused on or to work towards in the meditation? Or is the meditation by itself a perfect place to start or can be just as effective without the extras like the journaling paired with it?
So
if that makes sense. I don't know if that
yeah,
I rambled a shitload there, but
yeah, I understand. I believe so. I'll answer what I think your question was, and one part of this could be to create a why behind why you're meditating in terms of motivation. So there's one component of it. So why are you meditating? Just like why are you exercising?
Yeah.
So there's no underlying why and drive because you don't always wake up motivated.
Yeah.
You wake up sometimes you're like can't be bothered or you're a bit tired or you're hungover, which is normal. And if you don't have a why, a bigger why, you're going to wake up and be like, oh, I can't be bothered today.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I find really important is to like, what does your world look like as a byproduct of you meditating every day? And this is your why. Now, in terms of adding specific activities onto it, if you've got space for that, yeah. What a mistake some people can make is they go into it and then try to do too much all at once and then they do nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're nailing like 10, 15 minutes twice a day meditation, then maybe add on like do like a page of journaling afterwards.
Yeah.
Do 2 minutes of gratitude.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful time to add in things afterwards. Like do your habit stack. But in terms of an intention, yes, in the sense of why, to help motivate you when motivation's not there. But otherwise, any visualization, all that kind of stuff can be really powerful to do right after meditation as well as little add-ons. Yeah.
Do you find, I often talk to my clients in particular about you're better off having, a good or a pretty good month, more so than having the perfect week and then doing fuck all for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
In terms of meditation, how important is it to have that consistency throughout the week or throughout the month, more so than just doing a few good days here and there? Like, can you still get the benefit of maybe meditating 3 or 4 days a week? Or do you think it's more important to, even if you have a shitty session, a couple of days a week, to get it done every single day?
Well, the way I frame it is you use this technique not when you're feeling, when you break, use it as a preventative before you break.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people, unfortunately, they wait till they're like, all right, I'm having panic attacks. I can't focus anymore. I'm insomniac. I'm depressed. I've got anxiety, whatever it is. And they wait and then they come and learn to meditate.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the work on this daily, it's just like waiting till you're, 20 kilos overweight to go, okay, now I'm going to go exercise. It's like, do it now and set yourself up now so you're in the best position moving forward to not experience those things. And that comes from consistency.
Yeah.
So, 3 or 4 days a week is great. It all depends on, you made a really good point there around, the perfect week and striving for too much. So if you've never meditated before, 3 to 4 days a week is excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have been meditating for 3 or 4 days a week for a few months, what's next? Maybe it's 5 or 6. Maybe it's every day. Maybe it's twice a day. So what I'd always say is like, from wherever you're at, what's a few percent on top of that look like? And set targets that way. But you want to be working towards a level of consistency. So you'd be hoping for every day as a morning routine, or maybe it's Monday to Friday, and then your weekends, because they're a bit not as routine, they drop off for a lot of people. Consistency is ideal.
Was the name of that silent meditation retreat, was it Vipassana?
Yeah, insight meditation. Yeah,
I'm curious. Have you done one of those before?
No, I already got on a list up here. There's a few that are on wait lists. So
run us through like what the like what it actually involves. So it's 10 days, is it?
So you can do different lengths of time. Sometimes there's 3, 7, 10, and you have to complete one of them often to go to the next level, which is a lot longer. Yeah, and the whole concept here is Vipassana meaning insight. So around insight awareness. And for a lot of people, they find they have pretty profound moments of realization through the process. Yeah. And so what it is, you go in there and you have to hand in your phone, no journaling, no nothing, no eye contact, no speaking. And so you literally, sounds amazing, huh?
Yeah.
So you go in there. It's because all these things, they're escapism tools and they're numbing tools and they're doing tools, right? So when you allow yourself just to be with just you, that's when things get uncomfortable, but also some amazing things can happen.
Yeah.
So each day you'd wake up 4, 5, 6 in the morning and you'd meditate for a few hours, then you'd have some food.
So you handle that stuff in day one, and then you don't touch any of it again until you leave?
Correct, till you're out.
Right.
So throughout there are slight versions that aren't quite as staunch.
Yeah.
For example, that because the idea is when you're meditating, you're sitting down everyone's sitting in this room and you're sitting down meditating for hours on end. And they're using a combination of concentration and contemplation techniques. So you probably focus on the end of your lip or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're literally doing it for hours. And then you get up and you go eat, but you're not even meant to make eye contact with people. There's no interaction, no smiling, no conversation. It's just you being with yourself.
Right.
And what the most common feedback I get is the first sort of 5 to 7 days are extremely difficult. And then often you have this moment where you sort of finally come to peace with just going through what you're experiencing. And then people can have some pretty profound experiences. And so that is an example of something you can come out of as an intense experience. And it can be it's a peak experience.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, wow. So maybe like one of them a year would be pretty amazing if that's what you're into. So that's one of the more extreme styles that you can.
And would that type of practice be for someone who is quite experienced like yourself in meditation? Could you go in completely raw and do something like this and still see those benefits, or do you reckon it just break someone who wasn't used to that type of?
Depends. People go in there totally raw. A lot of people go there. What I tend to hear is there tend to be a lot of people who are going through like some kind of rehab. Tend to go to these sort of places, but they actually should do a psychological test to make sure that you can handle the experience. So I would probably recommend having some experience meditation beforehand.
And is it meant to like, so
again, if you have it and you're really feeling called to it, and
so is that like I haven't done either, so I wouldn't know, but like, is the experience meant to be something similar to like a psychedelic experience, or is it different?
Well, it can be. So what a lot of the psychedelics are doing is they're like almost like a steroid and fast tracking your experience of going beyond like the relative thinking and the ego and the doing, right? And so you're experiencing different states of consciousness, and the psychedelics are like that experience of like, wow, this experience is possible. You might start seeing all these random old experiences coming up, and you see sort of like the different Aztec colors, like the mandalas, which is supposed to be sort of this potential vision of your universe. And so psychedelics are an experience that you can have, but you need to ingest something external into your system. And there is a debt for that. Always. You put something in your body, there's going to be some kind of a debt. Now, meditation is sort of, this is when the traditional and very pure like yogis and people even like monks would have practiced that. The reason they don't drink alcohol and eat meat and have sex and watch TV is because all those things are barriers. They're blocks. So the whole concept is that you don't need psychedelics or other drugs to have these experiences if your body is totally clean and pure of all these other external blocks. And so, you know, the psychedelics can help you fast track that experience as peak moments every now and then, but meditation can be something you can do just daily. It can also help you experience that, but it won't be quite as profound often. I mean, the 10-day retreat potentially can have some similar effects. And I actually chatted to someone today who was talking about they're going through like abstaining from alcohol and sex and things like that to start experiencing the byproducts of things like psychedelics and even like cocaine to be able to experience those sensations without having to ingest anything. So the power of the mind and body is huge, because a lot of those things are actually just causing the mind and body to create chemicals themselves.
It's a chemical reaction.
Right. So it's a juicy little world. And obviously psychedelics and like psilocybin and even MDMA now are used only in safe, in measured ways as therapy for a lot of people and as healing modalities. So it's a whole new world of working with some of these, and a lot of them are traditionally natural medicines. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. Comedian I listen to, he's kind of been through. He's like he was a former addict, and so he's like completely sober now. And I think he's struggled previously with depression and stuff like that. He's recently been trying ketamine therapy over in the States. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when it's dosed in the right way and in the right environment. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested in that space, and I'm not sure how far behind Australia is in genuinely legalizing some of those things, but there's some serious because particularly some of the psychedelics, they are derived from naturally grown plants in the world, and so if we're eating this like whole foods, natural products, they are better for us as opposed to something synthetic. That is, synthetic, made by pharmaceuticals who own it and make a shit ton of money. And then a lot of them actually are numbing symptoms, right? So a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs we get dosed with mainly often numbing a lot of our symptoms. They're not really working on the root cause. While I would argue that a lot of these medicines are actually helping us to work on the root cause. So I hope we do start moving forward with that, because that's it's a powerful space.
Yeah. So, mate, just before we wrap things up, like, I know you're obviously heavily in this space now, and outside of the momentum stuff as well, you've got your own coaching, and particularly with meditation. So what are some of the courses or offerings that you have that some people that are listening at the moment that are super interested might be able to get in touch with you about? And we'll have all the links to everything in the show notes as well, obviously. But what services are you offering at the moment?
Yeah, so, I mean, my brand's called Mind Maverick. And the whole concept there is around, the maverick mind being a mind that isn't held back by stress and anxiety and stuck in the old patterns and comparing to what society deems as how we should be doing things. And a maverick, the mind of a maverick is free and creative and expansive. And so underneath that, I have a meditation course, which is based on the Vedic philosophy that I studied, but also weaving in Western science and then my way of operating in the modern world to help us recover better and use meditation as a daily practice. And it's just a self-guided course. So you can do it in your own time and just watch it that way. And then, if you want to go next level up, then there is the one-on-one mentoring where I work with people to master meditation, because just like probably going to get the best out of training if you get someone to teach you how to live properly, right?
Yeah.
So
I learn the foundations properly.
Like I teach you properly so you become self-sufficient, because my whole ethos is around making the apps redundant. So you don't have to plug into an app every time. You don't have to be guided every time, so you can meditate anytime, anywhere, to keep consistent. And so the whole idea is that I teach you to become self-sufficient so you don't have to see me again. So there's that one-on-one component as well. And then one of the things I actually really enjoy doing is also working with forward-thinking businesses and corporates. So
okay, cool.
They're willing to that kind of stuff and shift the whole culture in businesses. So that's they're the three main ways that I do things.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll be sure to grab all the info from you after we wrap up the chat now, and we'll have it in the show notes. So for everyone who's taken some value from the episode, which I'm sure all of you have, don't hesitate to jump into any of those, or even just get in touch with Janoah if you want to learn some more. Appreciate you coming on, man. It was really enjoyable. I reckon the listeners would have got a lot out of it.
I hope so, mate. It was good chatting.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for tuning into the episode. If you have taken some value, we'd love for you to take a screenshot of this episode on your phone right now and just post on your Instagram story, tag myself and Janoah. We'd love to hear your feedback. And a big thanks for tuning in. We'll chat to you again in the next episode of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast.